Hi friends. Today I'll be reading again from this book, Bread and Wine, Readings for Lent and Easter. This is a particularly hard-hitting passage, but I have faith that you'll stick with me. This is called The Cross and the Cellar by Morton T. Kelsey. Each of us has, underneath our ordinary personality which we show to the public, a cellar in which we hide the refuse and rubbish which we would rather not see ourselves or let others see. And below that is a deeper hold in which there are dragons and demons, a truly hellish place, full of violence and hatred and viciousness. Sometimes these lower levels break out, and it is to this lowest level of humans that public executions appeal. In the cross, this level of our being has thrust itself up out of its deepest underground cellar so that we humans may see what is in all of us and take heed. The cross is crucial because it shows what possibilities for evil lie hidden in human beings. It is the concretion of human evil in one time and place. Whenever we look upon the cross, which was simply a more fiendish kind of gibbet, we see what humankind can do, has done, and still does to some human beings. It can make us face the worst in ourselves and in others, that part of us which can sanction a cross or go to watch a crucifixion. The cross is the symbol, alive and vivid, of the evil that is in us, of evil itself. Scratch the surface of a person, and below you find a beast, or worse than a beast, for animals seldom play with their victims. This is what the cross says. We don't like to believe this, but let's look at the facts. Who were the ones who ran the concentration camps of Nazi Germany, kept the gas ovens fed, made lampshades out of tattooed human skin, who performed mass murders and executions? It is important to remember that Germany was the most literate and educated nation in the world. We think that the people who did these things must have been perverted monsters. Actually, most of them, until they stepped into these roles, had been peaceful German citizens who had never hurt a person, living quietly and peacefully in their comfortable homes. And then the devils in them were let loose. Were all Mongol hordes which followed Genghis Khan just wild brutes? No. At home they were kind and loving to their wives and families, and yet as they swept through Persia, they killed 100,000 in a single city. Once Attila died, the Huns became as gentle and peaceful as any people in Europe. And yet Genghis Khan and Attila were novices, much less efficient and adroit at disposing of human life compared with our educated moderns. We don't want to face our own darkness. It is too painful. The atrocity stories which follow in the wake of every war, every one, involve both sides and are as incredible as the cross and are usually performed by men and women who had never before done such things. Scratch the surface of a human being and the demons of hate and revenge, avarice, and sheer destructiveness will break forth. The cross stands before us to remind us of this depth of ourselves so that we can never forget. These forces continue to break forth in many parts of the world now. And again, we read stories of violence in our daily papers, of the mass murders and wars still occurring in numerous parts of the world. But how often do we say to ourselves, what seizes people like that, even young people, to make them forget family and friends and suddenly kill other human beings? We don't ask the question in that matter. Sometimes we are likely to think most smugly how different those horrible creatures are from the rest of us. How fortunate I am that I could never kill or hurt other people like they did. I do not like to stop. And in the silence, look within. But when I do, I hear a pounding on the floor of my soul. And when I open the trap door into the deep darkness, I see the monsters emerge for me to deal with. There emerges the sheer mindless, destructive brutality of the Frankenstein monster. And the next deft and skilled Aztec priest sacrificing their victim. Then I see the image of the slave trader with his whips and chains and the torquemada flesh have I do not like to stop and in the silence look within. But when I do, I hear a pounding on the floor of my soul. And when I open the trapdoor into the deep darkness, I see the monsters emerge for me to deal with. If I do not deal with it, it deals with me. The cross reminds me of all of this. The cross symbolizes what ordinary people can do when they fail to see the monsters dwelling deep within their lives. The person who talks viciously or plays the power game is stepping into the path of those who invented and practiced crucifixion. It is not a pretty way. And then he says, let us look at some of the people who brought Jesus of Nazareth, the crucifixion. He goes through Pilate, Caiaphas, but let's look at Judas. Why did Judas betray his master? He wasn't interested in the 30 pieces of silver, at least not primarily. Judas had wanted Jesus to call upon heavenly powers to take control of the situation and throw the Romans out of Palestine. When he failed to do this, Judas no longer wanted anything to do with him. Judas's fault was that he couldn't wait. He couldn't wait and wanted to push things through. When we think we can accomplish a noble end by human beings, we are just like Judas. And then he says, then there was a nameless carpenter who made the cross. He was a skilled workman. He knew full well what the purpose of that cross was. If you questioned him, he probably would have said, but I am a poor man who must make a living. If other men use it for ill, is that my fault? So say all of us who pursue jobs which add nothing to human welfare or hurt people. Does the work I do aid or hinder human beings? Are we cross makers for our modern world? There are many of them. These were the things that crucified Jesus on Good Friday. They were not wild viciousness or sadistic brutality or naked hate, but the civilized vices of cowardice, bigotry, impatience, timidity, falsehood, indifference. Vices we all share. The very vices which crucify human beings today. This destructiveness within us can seldom be transformed until we squarely face it in ourselves. This confrontation often leads us into the pit. The empty cross is planted there in that pit to remind us that suffering is real, but not the end. That victory is still possible if we strive on. Thank you, friends, for staying with me with that one. It's a good reminder to take a good hard look in the mirror and know that we have a lot to confess, but that there is grace enough for all of us. Hope you have a great week. Blessings.